And now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge, not wholly or in full measure, but very substantially. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom.
August 15, 1947, the day when India awoke to freedom. It paid a heavy cost. The country was free but severed, families displaced, loved ones killed, houses pilfered across borders. Over 12.5 million people displaced, thousands killed, yet the stories remain untold, unspoken. The brainchild of Guneeta Singh Bhalla, 1947 Partition Archives, is the only organization dedicated to documenting, preserving, and sharing eyewitness accounts from 1947 partition survivors. Held at the UC Berkeley skydeck, the Art for Partition Benefit Luncheon brought together survivors, artists, and historians.
It started off with an idea of wanting to bring in local artists and South Asian artists to show just a creative aspect of getting people involved with the history of partition. And then it sort of grew into this giant event with the luncheon and the speakers.
Smith says she decided to volunteer her time because she believes in the cause.
I think it's really important to preserve oral histories, giving voice to people who normally don't have a voice. Time is ticking. It's really important to start preserving now. It's been 65 years since partition, and every individual story counts, and we want those to be counted and heard.
With that pledge and some very determined volunteers, the archive has grown since its inception. Now they hope to use crowdsourcing to collect these oral histories. Born to Zoroastrian parents in Karachi, British India, Ms. Sidhwa is a well-known author whose books, such as Cracking India, touch upon this very sensitive issue. We had a chance to sit down with her.
Partition was such a defining moment in the history of the subcontinent, and really nothing has been done, written about it or archived as much as it should have been. And I feel, I'm one of those partition survivors in a way, although I was very young then, but people who are still in their 80s and 90s would know a lot more, and I think their memories should be preserved before it is all gone. It's so important to learn what we did to each other, because if we don't learn these lessons, and truth has to be told, otherwise we keep on perpetuating those horrible cycles of violence. Partition has affected almost every life. I'm a Parsi. I spent my life in Lahore. I wasn't part of the emigration, and yet it affected my life very deeply. It does touch on everybody's life who lived at that time. The repercussions took place even later. Even my children are suffering on account of it, and you'd think I'm very removed from it. But it does change people, because this violence, has become accepted as a norm. The violence introduced during partition, not that, India's history has been non-violent. It has always been very violent. The, Rajas fighting each other, the Mughal empires, descending and killing people. All those things have been part of our history, but somehow things had softened up. And that cycle of, partition is not over. That cycle of violence is still continuing. And I don't know where it will end.
What do you think can be done to address these, obviously it's not one thing, but where do you start?
Well, the archives are an important element of it, remembering what has happened. A history correctly written, not a biased history, because our schools are full of biased histories, teaching hatred. So hatred has to be softened. The other person is also God's creature. He's no different from the other person. We all are born innocent, and we grow up learning prejudices from our elders. And our elders have to become very, very conscious. There has to be a concerted effort to teach their children, not to teach them hatred.
With local artists donating their artwork and Sidhwa's books on display, the archive hopes to raise funds to launch their worldwide crowdsourcing campaign.
ये सुबह कभी तो आएगी, ये सुबह कभी तो आएगी.
That's all for this week's Diya TV Spotlight. To catch more, log on to youtube.com/DiyaTVUSA. And if you have an event that needs to be covered, send us an email at spotlight@diyaTVinc.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time, right here on Diya TV.